I just like making cool shit. I think being able to make cool shit and then enjoying it yourself, being able to play your own project or read your own project and think, man, this is pretty fucking cool. Even years later, it's a great feeling.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm lying. Oh, damn.
I'm Old Man Raptor. What, huh? I'm Old Man Raptor and our guest is. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Pearsall, owner of thestrangepear Gallery of Fine Arts in the VRU Oasis.
Oh, well, thank you very much for joining us, Pear. It's a pleasure to sit down and meet you today.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to be here and get to talk about myself for the next hour.
Well, how did you get started here in Vrchat and art?
So, art, I've always done art. I guess I'll give the kind of abridged full story. So before Vrchat stuff, I was doing personal projects. I've made 2 video games and I made 2 graphic novels. And the reason I did that without much prospect of getting profit, with the exception of the most recent video game project, which made decent money, I wanted to get my passion projects done, like my dream projects, done at an early age, because I didn't know if I'd have time to do them when I'm older. And so I did that, and I finished my last major video game in 2021, and then I finished up my last major graphic novel project in 2022, or early 2022. And I started Vrchat in very late 2021, like very late December. And so I was kind of at a crossroads, because what I was doing for money at that time, I was teaching a teen art workshop at a local art studio. I'd been doing it for 5 years, and I would help set up gallery shows there occasionally. I would volunteer my time, just helping them out where I could. I'm still wonderful friends with them. I love those ladies who run that gallery. And I was in a weird place because before COVID, I was getting like 12 students a class, and I got paid per student. So like, even though I was working like an hour and a half a week, I was making like 600 bucks a month just doing that. Like, just doing that little thing wasn't sustainable, but like, but like after COVID, like either students didn't have the money to do it, or they got too old for the program, or they moved, or it was something else happened. So I was getting like 2 students a week. So I'm there. I had finished a major project. I wasn't enjoying the one I was currently working on, that graphic novel. And I discovered Vrchat as a way to kind of distract myself. And I did all the crazy shit. Like I went to the exotic dance clubs. I went to the drinking events. I did all of that. And had a friend group there that tried to start their own club. That fell apart. That's its own story. Doesn't really matter. Other than that, it sucked and it was a terrible experience. And so in February of 2022, early February, I'm in the pits. I feel like shit. Have no idea like where my life is going. Cause COVID kind of fucked up my direction, and I was kind of getting burnt out on my own projects. And so I decide to go to this. This is starting the part that most people know. Like I tell this story to a good number of people, just because it doesn't sound real. So I get this bottle of shitty cognac, and I think I'm gonna go to this VR strip club, Zodiac, and I'm just gonna get drunk. And I meet someone there who says, "Hey, I'm going to 5 more clubs in a row after this. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, well, I'm depressed. I want to get my mind off things. I have a bottle of cognac. Let's do this. And it's bad cognac. It's terrible cognac. And so I'm drinking out of masochism. I go to the next 5 clubs. I remember 3 of them. The middle 2 is a bit hazy. But the last one was Soulwell, a death metal themed lap dance club that used to be here in the VRU. And my friend had left. I was starting to sober up somehow, and something in my lizard brain said, like, "Hey, stay for the after party." I'm like, "Why? I'm tired. I'm sad. This place is cool, but like, lizard brain's just like, you'll thank me later." I'm like, "All right, shit." Announcer goes up to do the ending announcements, and he says, "By the way, we're looking for someone to do illustrations for our staff posters. If you think you're the type of artist who would be up for doing something like that, get in contact with me." And I walk up to him drunk, and I'm like, "This is it. This is my moment." It's like I very rarely got freelance work because I just didn't like doing the social media stuff, and I just hadn't spent the time to network a bunch of contacts that would regularly commission me. I had one or two people who were regulars, but nothing sustainable. And so I go up to him and was like, "I do dark fantasy bullshit." And so he's like, "Oh, okay, send me the stuff on Discord." I show him the stuff on Discord. And he goes, "Bloody hell," takes me into the bag and it's like, "How much budget do we got for this guy?" It's like, "Oh, we got $1,000. I'm like, "Holy shit." It's like slot machine eyes landing on double dollars. And I yell, and after I left Vrchat that night, I went, "Fuck yeah," so loud that my dad heard me, and he pops in through the door. He's like, "You get a good commission?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I think this is gonna be big." And so I'm getting like multi-$100 commissions from Soulwell for months, and I keep thinking, this has got to stop soon, right? There's no way this is going to be just my new sustainable living. But that's exactly what it ends up being. I keep getting commissions, and them showing their work at Soulwell, which was very popular at the time, was just getting me more and more clients. I end up making friends with TheCastle, who made this whole place, made the VRU Oasis. And we hit it off because of he's an ex-game dev, and I've done like a bit of game dev with my projects, and so we kind of hit it off with that. People were half jokingly telling me I should have my own art gallery with all my art. I'm like, I don't like that idea. I don't want just all my art. I want it to, if I had an art gallery, I would run it like a real art gallery. I would let people be able to purchase slots. I would run gallery shows. I would make it a whole thing, because that shit's fun. Walking into a gallery that doesn't change of one person's art sucks. I think it's incredibly boring. I mean, there's some cool gallery worlds. It's just, I would rather be able to talk to the artists, be able to like feel the energy of a bunch of people enjoying art, be able to network, all that. And so I pitched the idea to Castle one day. And he says, "How would that even work?" I'm like, "Well, I'll come up with a layout. I'll come up with a work pipeline. If you like it, let's do it." He's like, "I'm willing to try this." And so we set this up like we start work on it in June or July of 2022. And then we had our first gallery opening in September of 2022. And I put a lot of work into promoting the shows. Our first show, we had 40 people in the lobby throughout the entire time for our first opening show. And that was the moment me and Castle looked at each other and was like, holy shit, people like this. And so how that's evolved is if you were here yesterday, the past few shows have been this, where it's just 80 people, like 70 to 80 people the whole time, and it's Lag City. It's great. The energy is electric. We got live musicians playing upstairs that I'm paying. And so this is now my life. This is what I do. And I love it. I have so much fun running these shows. And I've kind of, I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, I've kind of become the Vrchat art guy. Like, I've become like one of the people. And I still don't quite know how to process that. Because remember, all of this started from me feeling burnt out, uncertain of my future, depressed as hell, hating myself, and going to a bunch of VR strip clubs while blitzed out of my mind on bad cognac.
Mm.
So when people ask, what's the secret to your success? I joke with them. Get drunk, be depressed, go to strip clubs. And boom, you'll get a living out of it.
Don't forget the bad cognac. You gotta have that bad cognac before the memory will kick in gear and going, I got an idea. Yeah.
I still have that bottle. I still have the bottle of that cognac. I sort of keep it as a memento. Remind me, it's like, hey, things can change at the drop of a hat. Just get out there and do shit. Put yourself in situations.
Your whole story is actually kind of inspirational, a sense of don't be afraid to just go out and do things. You never know what kinds of things
That's
will
what I
fall
tell
into your
artists
lap.
here.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many artists that, like, especially nowadays, like, I don't want to be like that guy saying, like, young artists don't know what they're doing, but they don't, and they haven't for a long time. I didn't know because my generation, we grow up seeing stuff like social media, DeviantArt, seeing that the thing that will get you perceived success is all these numbers and followers, and then the right person will follow you, I guess, out of like a million other artists, and you'll be given a Lamborghini and a unicorn by fucking Shiva or whatever, and like that's not how it works. Social media is a dog shit way of actually getting business as an artist, and it's very rare that art schools will teach you actually how to make money as an artist, especially with freelance. And I've found the answer to that vending at conventions is you need to put yourself in situations where people who are actually looking to spend money on artists are at. You need to go out there and do things. People aren't going to come to you on the internet. People aren't, unless you get lucky or you're making porn. Those are the two things. Either that or you spend way too much time on an algorithm that doesn't give a shit about you. And even then you might not make money. You could have 10, 20,000 followers and not make money on social media. So like I don't give a shit about social media, and I'm making bank in here. Because the actual like interactions that end up making you profit are talking to people who are looking at your work, having a conversation, having a meaningful interaction with you. And that is the kind of environment that art galleries provide, that conventions provide, and that I wanted to create with the Strange Pear.
Wow. So I had no idea there was this big of a need for or a want of some kind of art gallery or place like this. Did you expect as
I
much
think there's
attention?
a need. Did I expect the attention? Hell no. So Castle joked with me early on that this is the thing that's gonna get the oh god, what's it called? What's the channel that Game of Thrones is on? Like, what's that called?
HBO?
Yeah, he said it's like this is the thing that's gonna get the HBO special, and I'm like, come on, that's bullshit. But we haven't gotten an HBO special. But as I said before, like I've kind of become like one of the persons in here. I'm like I'm a niche micro celebrity. Like big YouTubers have come through here. I've talked with business people. I've talked with millionaires. It's so weird. I thought this would be a good idea. I didn't think that people in VRchat would gravitate toward it. But because it's so different from the usual stuff, from the drinking nights, from the strip clubs, from the open mic nights, even if we want to get more safer work with it, from the open mic nights, from the world hopping, this just provides such a different vibe that I think people really gravitate toward having a chill like evening event.
Wow. So so with that as well, how many artists did you find who want to become a part of your gallery within the VRChat community?
Practically every artist who walks through here shoots me a message if they're confident in their work. And we get new artists every show. We actually offer a service that if it is your very first time submitting and you're unsure, you get a free slot. Every additional slot's $20. But I want to make sure that artists can feel comfortable doing this because we are able to do things that a lot of art galleries can't. And most art galleries, upon necessity, because they're renting a real life space, they need to pay for costs. You have to sell your work in most galleries, and usually, and by usually I mean always, the gallery takes a cut. The gallery takes a cut that's about like 30% of what you sell the piece for. And that's okay. That is entirely under the rights of a gallery to ask for because they need to pay the bills too. Like they need to eat too. And usually submitting to a gallery costs like $30-$40. Depending on the gallery. Sometimes more. Sometimes it costs more than that if it's like really, really big gallery in the city. It can get up there. But we don't have to do that because we don't need to pay overhead. And so I can let the artists, I can tell the artists, try it out. If you like it, you could pay me for more slots, or you could use it as an opportunity to purchase a bunch of slots and then have a piece for free, just so that you can have a lot of slots in the gallery in your opening show. And you keep all the money you make. And that's not a common thing that galleries get to do.
Oh, really? That's not that common at all in the real world.
So artists love being a part of this. We've gotten people who even were, and this is my favorite part of running the gallery. This is one of my favorite things for people to tell me. When people tell me, Pear, I had given up on making art. And the gallery inspired me to do it again. And since they started showing the gallery, even if they don't sell, like being in front of people and doing that networking and seeing people interested in your work has inspired them to get back into the arts again and really experiment with their work. And that, after college, I didn't have a thing that sort of got me out of that. I basically went straight into making a video game because I hated the college experience so much that I almost didn't want to do art again. And I did a big project in order to Stockholm syndrome myself into liking art again. But I had to do that myself, and it's hard to pull yourself out of that. And the fact that I'm able to be someone that helps people out of that slump of being too sad or too depressed or too discouraged to let their creativity thrive, it means the world to me. More than the money, more than anything. Just
wow.
It's good shit. Money's good too. The money's good too. I won't lie.
I'm sure it's very good.
I'm not making six figures. I'm making enough. I'm making enough to get by.
Well, in the end of the day, if you enjoy what you do and you can get by, I think you're doing pretty well and successfully for yourself.
I love it. Like I don't want to say it doesn't feel like work because it is work. There's a lot that goes into these shows and planning them out and getting people organized. But man, is it fun?
There was a quote given to me by a gentleman I met in a hospital. He's an older dude, and he looked at me and goes, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And then he gets pulled off by the nurse to do his own thing. So if you enjoy what you do at the end of the day, then is it really work if you enjoy doing it?
Yeah. It's just work you enjoy.
Fair enough.
It gets more effortless as time goes on, though. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Well,
no, but oh my god, the things I get to make for people on the freelance side of things, like the paintings I've been able to make that I would not have made myself, like that space dragon behind you. That's something I wouldn't have really thought to make, like this space Leviathan cracking open a ship like a tin can. Like that's not something I usually make with my fantasy worlds. And so
Mm.
getting the opportunity to do stuff like that is so awesome.
Mm. Well, from a lot of the art around us, it's obvious you like doing dark fantasy. How did you get into that specific genre of art?
Uh, so from a young age, it was like 2003 when I first found out about Magic the Gathering, and I saw this like grungy mono black deck in an old hobby shop, and I was instantly enamored. I was a little kid,
Mm.
and I remember begging my parents to get it for me, and they finally relented. And I didn't know how to play until like 2017,
Mm.
but like I would just look at the art and like allow it to transport me to these worlds and just think about it's like, all right, what is this world like? It's so like dark and grungy. And like that, I had played Yu-Gi-Oh until that time, so if this was so different from that vibe. And it kind of got me hooked. It was like a mix of that, uh mostly Magic the Gathering, but like there's some Zelda Twilight Princess inspired a lot of my style. Shadow of a Colossus, uh, but in terms of like how I wanted to present it, old fantasy art. It's the king. I love it,
Mm.
and I think that kind of art is best done traditionally, like in paintings and stuff. So like I only do traditional work, even for my video games. I didn't do like digital art. It's all traditional animation. I love it.
Wow.
I think it's so cool.
So you saying that brings me a question. How did you do traditional art to make a video game then? What was your process of doing that?
Oh, thank you for asking. I haven't gotten to talk about Existensis in so long in an interview. It's been a
Fair
while.
warning,
So,
something about me, I enjoy the technicals. I can go balls deep listening to someone
oh, you'll
talk
love this.
about all the technicals. What is this thing? What's that thing? So go nuts.
So, I'll go through the process on how I designed a level. Existensis was a exploration-based platformer. No enemies, no fall damage, no fail state. Just like a very narrative-based branching paths exploration story. Which is the kind of game I'd wanted to make since I was a kid.
Mm.
Just something where you could just enjoy a fantasy world without things attacking you.
Mm.
And it's still highly regarded as the coolest thing I've ever made. Everyone who's played that has enjoyed it. So, what I would do to make a level, first, I would go into a bullet journal and plan out everything on a grid. Because I knew how far the player could jump and how high they could jump, and I based all the levels around that.
Mm.
And once I drew out the level plan, I got out a light table, and I had a piece of 11 by 17 paper that had grid on it, and I taped the paper to that, and I drew out the assets
Mm.
using a fountain pen, and then I would color them in so that like all of the sizing would be correct. Once all of that was done and colored, I used Prismacolor markers, color pencil, and white charcoal to color. Uh, and then I would do the animation of NPCs or just other animated assets like smoke, water, all that. I would use note cards to do that with the light table. And then I would paste those to a piece of 11 by 17 paper to scan them in. And then once everything was scanned in, I would go into Photoshop, remove the backgrounds and stuff, get all the assets isolated, and I would bring them into a software called Game Maker Studio 2. I would do all the programming in that. I'd make all the music for the levels. I put everything together in that software,
Mm.
and that's how I kind of would put it all together. I actually have a video on it somewhere on my YouTube from like a few years ago that actually shows the process.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and it was a huge pain in the ass. The number of assets I ended up making for that, I want you to imagine a pile of 200 sheets of 11 by 17 paper, with art absolutely covering both sides of
Mm.
each piece. So there's like 400 pages of assets
Wow.
on 11 by 17 paper in Existensis. The actual pile could probably stop a bullet.
Wow. That's quite impressive. You put that much uh love into making that game. How long did it take you to do it that way?
2.5 years.
Wow. Talk about a passion
Did I
project.
make 2.5 years worth of income? Did I make 2.5 years worth of income off that game? Fuck no. Did I make a good amount of money for having not spent a cent on it and just figuring out how to promote my shit really well on Reddit? Yes. I made pretty decent money for not having spent a cent. I got to front page of Reddit twice. I got very good at making GIFs.
Oh. Well, is it on Steam or somewhere people can buy? Because you put in the thingamabobble
Yes.
so they can play. We'll listen to the rest of this video.
Existensis.
Existensis?
Yes. Play Existensis on Steam. It is $15. You can also find links to it on my website at www.ozpearsall.art.
So another question on Existensis, is there a story to it, or is it just like straight exploration?
Yes. So that I told you about this beforehand. I've been making a fantasy world for the past 10 years called The World of Ere in a storyline called The Age of Empathy. There is a story to it. There's like a whole world that I have planned. There's even more to this world beyond what you see in the game. I have another game called the Multitral that is set in the same world like 10 years prior. And I'm actually, my current like side project is I'm making a series of small like guidebooks to the world of Ere. That won't be done for quite a while, but yeah, even the graphic novels I did are kind of prequel stories, like that take place thousands of years before to what happens in the video games. So this is something I've been cooking for quite a while now.
Oh, well, it kind of sounds like all your work
Ever
to
since
some degree
graduating.
is linked. May I ask what the story is?
I can give you the broad strokes because every project kind of has its the longer narrative is showing the history and quote unquote like present of this world and vignettes of the people who live in it. So the broad strokes of it, it is a theoretical future of Earth with a slightly alternate history where all the bad shit has happened and created this nearly apocalyptic age of greed. Like this is a world where climate change gets as bad as it possibly could. This is a world where all of the plastics never get cleaned up in the oceans, and it's just everything is shit. Everyone's out for themselves, and by the skin of its teeth, the world sort of recovers and gets past that age of greed, and society completely reinvents itself. Like humanity almost dies. This is not that age of rebuilding after the age of greed. This is what happens after that. So that is the age of empathy. That is when my video games take place. This sort of like prosperous utopia where humanity is just like, we fucked up real bad and none of this shit worked. Let's try again. And in this world, thoughts and emotions have a lot of power. And so there are these beings called thought forms that sort of gently guide the world through these eras. And they are beings that, when there is a massive amount of a specific kind of thought, that idea saturates the air, falls into itself into a singularity, and gains sentience as its own being. The start of the Age of Greed began when the thought form of greed was born. And so he dies, the thought forms of kindness, truth, and fear come into being, and they sort of guide the world in a much more positive direction. Also with the help of a lot of other historical figures like Bone Reader Arthas, and some others that I'll probably talk about in later stories. But yeah, so there's a whole thing behind it, and what I like to do in the Age of Empathy is just show various people who live in this world and what their lives are like, and the things they get up to, and the different cultures I get to create around ideas like philosophy of going on a literal pilgrimage to better yourself, different types of spirituality, different ways of living, a whole city of just like weather analysts,
Hmm.
an entire society built around the literal corpse of the thought form of ego. So they are a society built on literal ego death.
Oh. Yeah.
And a lot of their infrastructure is built from the brass gold that they take from this corpse.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds like you've put a
So
lot of love
it's a
into
lot.
it.
It's a lot.
It sounds it. How long have you been working on
10
this
years of
whole
work.
10 years? Wow.
10 years of developing this world.
Oh, and it sounds
It's
like you're
very
still
fleshed
going.
out. Oh yeah, no, I thought I was gonna stop and move on to other things, but I realized, I love this world I've made too much to move on from it.
Hmm.
I was gonna make another graphic novel that sort of like directly followed up Existensis. But like it was originally gonna be a video game, then I'm like, I don't have time for a video game. I'm working on the gallery. And it was gonna be a graphic novel. I'm like, I don't want to fucking make another graphic novel. And so like I shelved that. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a series of like books and illustrations that are like guidebooks to this world, told from the point of view of different librarian scholars, that act as a sequel, and you could see in the background of these stories the events that have happened since Existensis. So this is kind of going to be the sequel to that game I had made.
Hmm. So
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hi, folks. You folks come and join us on our social and on our Discord. We love to see you there. We have a Patreon, and we have 2 people that have signed on, Training Fangs and Zero. And I hope we get to see you there, folks. We appreciate the time and effort that you make. And my ball's getting out of here because it needs new rubber. Bye.
if money, time, and help wasn't an issue, what would you ideally like your world to be portrayed by? What medium would you choose?
I don't have a preference. So as even both of my video games have completely different styles of gameplay. My graphic novels, the 2 graphic novels I made, are entirely different in how they're presented. Alien is presented as almost like a supernatural, like mystery, set in like the backwoods national park in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
And then Deliri is presented as a historical illuminated manuscript.
Hmm.
So I don't like doing the same thing twice. I really don't. And so I present a story in a medium that I think best tells that story.
Hmm.
I don't pick the medium I tell a story in for just the sake of doing something in that medium. Usually there's a purpose and there's a reasoning to why it's a video game, why it's a graphic novel,
Hmm.
why it's a book.
Hmm. So, another question for you. Like the 2 paintings behind you, this 2-headed beast and the thing over to your left, is when you make stuff like that, do you put a story to it, or is it just something you make at that moment?
Oh, so some of them so a lot of these are one-offs. Where do you see the second head?
Well, for a second,
Also-
I thought it was 2-headed, but maybe I'm just blind and dumb for the one over behind you. More than likely, I'm dumb.
Gotcha. So for my one-off
What the
pieces,
hell?
yeah,
Do you want my goddamn
usually
glasses so you can see better? I got bifocals that'll make it look better if you look
Maybe.
up close.
I may need your bifocals.
Okay, I'll send it. I'll send them to you.
send him a prescription.
Yeah,
But
why
yeah,
not?
usually I come up with a story.
Hmm.
It's more fun that way.
Hmm.
So like, sometimes it's part of a grander narrative, like going on in my head, that just will never see the light of day. Sometimes it's not. I just have fun with it.
Okay. That's really cool that when you do all your art and build your video games, that there's like an overarching thing around it as well. It kind of, to some degree, is like me as like a consumer of your product, kind of makes me want to go see the rest of your work just to see the rest of your world fleshed out, because I'm a sucker for that crap in video games. Like, I'll spend hours exploring worlds in video games just to read all the things and see all the little photos and hand play stuff personally.
There is stuff in Existences that people still haven't decoded.
Mm.
There's a lot of stuff in Pittman's shorthand in that game that has not been deciphered yet.
Mm. Is there any hints you can give to guide people into those things they haven't found?
No.
Fair. Suffer, I guess.
Suffer. Yeah, if you want the, because that, I mean, I just said it's in Pittman's shorthand. So if you can figure out Pittman's shorthand, you can kind of figure out what it is.
Okay. So with your second game, what inspired you to do that? Like, especially with the first one. Actually, scratch that. I'll go back.
Existences is my most.
Oh yeah, sorry. You continue.
Existences is my most recent project. Mulitoral was a project I made in 2017. Like, it was the first thing I did after college. That was inspired by the story presents anxiety as a curse and the treatment as a heroic journey across a fantastical land. The gameplay is like level-based point-and-click puzzles. It's seen from a first-person perspective, and you play as this girl named Jewel, and she is guided by this elder pilgrim named Glasswalker, and it's a story about Glasswalker trying to figure out how the fuck to be like essentially a therapist friend when he has no experience doing that sort of thing, and Jewel kind of learning how not to hate herself.
Wow.
It's a lot of influence from experiences I've had, like helping friends with like suicidal depression, and like what not to do with that and what you can do in a healthy way with that. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind that project. Do in a healthy way with that. Yeah, that's about it. Very similar process of how I made it to Existences. Lots of light table stuff.
Okay. So you said you started it after you burnt out. What caused the burnout, and how did you making a game help reinvigorate you into all of this art?
Well, during college, I made a sort of test game in 4 months during my first year of college called the Eigengrau Menagerie, which you cannot find or buy because it is not canon to the rest of the story, and it was kind of like a prototype for the world. And that was a test project, and I still love parts of it to this day. It still formed a lot of the backbone and core ideas of what I wanted that world to be. But it was a starting point. And so I had made that, but then in my second year, everyone was like, all right, you need to focus on your classes. And so I did. And there's a lot of reasons, a lot of personal reasons why college was not good for me. That environment was not good for me. The way things were structured was not good for me. I got good enough grades. I graduated. I got my associates in animation. I hated the experience of getting it. I hated the social aspects of college. It was terrible. I'd take high school over again over that shit. And I decided after my second year, and I had a long conversation with my parents. I'm like, I can't do more college. If I do more of this, I'm gonna end up dead in a gutter, or I'm gonna end up not wanting to do art again. And so I'm like, all right, I'm done with college. First day after I get home, I immediately start Molitoral, because I'm like, all right, because I had ideas for this game, and I had a whole year to plan out what I was going to do with it. And so I just like hit the ground running. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not wasting another goddamn day. I'm doing this even if it like sucks to work on, even if I have to drag my feet. And I'm still pretty proud of what I had made. There's a few things I'd change now that I have more experience, but I'm still very proud of that project. And that's kind of what like pulled me out. And to a lesser extent, Adian kind of like which was the next graphic novel I did immediately after Molotoro. That kind of really solidified that I liked doing what I was doing again.
Hmm. Okay. So how did that working on those projects, what did those mean to you to make you want to get back into it?
Making cool shit that people liked, like watching people play my games, enjoy my stories, see what see this thing that was my passion project and like genuinely enjoying it and being invested in it.
Mm,
That meant a lot to me, and it made, as I sort of like refined my process over time, it became more and more enjoyable to do.
mm.
Uh,
Oh.
and I just like it made it. It was sort of like over a long period of time, reminding me why I enjoyed making art in the first place.
Mm.
I just like making cool shit. I think being able to make cool shit and then enjoying it yourself, being able to play your own project or read your own project and think, man, this is pretty fucking cool. Even years later, it's a great feeling.
Mm. Okay. So on a complete whiplash back to the beginning conversation, with everything you've described, what kinds of things have you learned from both your projects to the art gallery, from the guests in general, that have stuck with you this entire time?
One of the most important things in life is time management.
Mm.
If you're going to get done a long-term project, you need to manage your time well, and you need to do it in a way that incorporates rest time.
Mm.
You need that rest time, and that rest time shouldn't always be on the same days. Sometimes you will need days that you can just like. If you need a mental health day, you need to take that mental health day, or else your
Mm.
work is going to suffer for it.
Mm.
And being able to schedule those potentialities into your schedule is so very important.
Mm.
Um, Another thing is just understanding that people are not always, they have not had the same experiences as you. So always take the time to be patient and teach them. So many
Mm.
artists come through the gallery not knowing what they're doing in terms of being a salesman, a businessman. So I actually go out of my way to teach them how to do that so they can get as much out of this gallery as possible.
Mm. So in a
And they could take those lessons and continue on with them.
wow. That's pretty impressive that you take the time to do that. So when someone new comes in, they're not just getting a place to show their art, they're getting possible lessons and guidance, sort of.
Yeah.
Mm.
If
Oh,
someone comes in here saying it's like, "Oh, I'm selling a headshot commission for like $30," I drag them to the basement. I'm like, "Listen here, you motherfucker, that is way too cheap. You are not going to make a living off of that shit. If you charge higher, people will spend the money. Just shut the fuck up and ask for more money. You will get clients." And they do,
wow.
and they thank me afterward.
Wow. So you shouldn't be afraid to charge more for your own handwork.
Absolutely. It's paradox. It sounds paradoxical, but if you charge more for your work, because you see, some like that's a $300 original.
Mm.
That's a 9 by 12 $300 original painting. You'd think that if I was selling it for $100, that more people would be interested in buying it.
Mm.
But here's the thing: this is so good that if I sold this for 100, people would think there must be something wrong with it,
Mm.
right? They think if they see you don't have confidence in your work, they won't have confidence in your work. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you sell your work cheaply, you will not get the sale. You'll end up making less money
Mm.
selling 50 pieces that are $10 than to sell one piece that's $5,000.
Mm. Mm.
Not that I've sold a piece that's $5,000. It's just
Yeah.
comparison.
No, I
Uh,
understand.
but yeah, like uh, sell your work for an amount of money that is worth your time,
Mm.
and don't feel afraid of asking for that money because there are people who will spend it, and there are people who understand that they are paying for an artisanal service.
Mm. Okay. So I take it that was a lesson you learned yourself. How long take you to figure that out?
Over time, I did a lot of research, and I am fortunate enough. There's a convention called a LuxCon that happens in Reading, Pennsylvania, every October, and a lot of high-end fantasy artists go there to show off their work. I've actually displayed there in the evening showcase twice. And what I learned from those artists over the years going there, asking them for their advice, has become an indispensable tool for me. One of the things they recommended to me after I got tired of using markers, and I was very good at markers. I could do shit like this with markers. Like I can make marker art not look like marker art. But I asked them, it's like, I want to start doing paint. What should I move to? And they looked at my art, and at least 5 of them, separate from each other, said, use acrylic gouache. And I'm like, all right, I'll try that. And I've fallen in love with it, and it's all I use now. I've been using it since 2020. And so there was that. The time management stuff I learned in college. That's from college, and that I refined that over the years working on long-term projects like video games and graphic novels. And it definitely helps for the gallery. And so, oh God, what else do I learn from those artists? Pricing my work also came from following blogs that they recommended, going to websites that they recommended, reading up how other freelancers sold their work and how successful artists, not like successful social media artists, successful freelance artists in the field doing what I was doing what I wanted to do. And they were all like, hey, charge, if depending on the job, charge hourly, or charge depending on what the job is. Depending on how much work's going to go into it, depending on how much paint's going to go into it, you need to determine that for yourself. But if you undersell yourself, they're not going to pay you. They're not going to pay you anything. They're going to decline you. And so those were two of the most important lessons.
Wow. Being
a good salesman is important.
So being a good salesman and like self-worth in your own work, how long did that take you to learn that lesson?
I'm a ham. I think it's interesting because I have always had self-worth, at least in terms of my artwork. In terms of my personality, that took a lot more time for me to refine and become a person that I felt was worth receiving, like, love. That took some time. But in terms of art, I've always been good at promoting my art. It just what it took was learning humility for me. For other people are too humble. For me, I had to dial it back and essentially be businesslike. Like I don't bullshit with business stuff. I tell people exactly what they'll be receiving. I tell them exactly what services I provide. I don't really relent. People are like, oh, do you do deals? I'm like, no. If you want to pay me for my work, you pay me for my work. And like I don't like sugarcoat it a lot. And I feel like that was very important. I don't think that works for every artist, but it works for me. And even if I made this gallery, I never went about this. I think I went about this with the right state of mind, in that I didn't want to go at this project with the intention of it being the Pearsall show. Like this, it's not. It's about the artists that submit here. Sure, my art's a part of that, but I am not like the golden god of the gallery. Like everybody who is submitting here has an equal part in making this show possible. And I feel like if you look at it from a point of view of a rising tide raises all boats, and actually going out of your way to help the people around you be just as successful as you are, or at least attempt to help them be as successful as you are. That is so much better than having the ego of trying to be like, I'm the best. This is my gallery. I run the best gallery thing in VRchat. No one can compete. I see other galleries try and start up, and I actually go and I give them advice. Like if I see someone trying to start an art thing, I will actually go to them and like, hey, I can help you like hit the ground running. Art Bar is an example of that. They don't quite do what we do, but they do something very similar. It's a monthly event. It's like an art block party. Actually, tonight is when they're holding their monthly event, and I am so excited. But yeah, very few people are. I want to see more people do this. I want not competition. I want camaraderie. I want contemporaries. I want to see more people doing this, but it's hard because it's a lot of work. It's so much goddamn work.
So I have another.
I kind of got off track there, maybe.
Don't ever apologize for going off track. I always enjoy listening to people be passionate about whatever they're passionate about. There's a few times we listen to someone talk about AI for 2.5 hours. It's okay. So how does a VR art gallery differ from a real life art gallery, and where are they similar as well?
So they're similar in that it's a similar networking opportunity where people come in. Like I've been to gallery openings, like the artists are there. You get to talk to the artists about their work. You get to understand their process. You get to connect with them. You get to hang out, have snacks, maybe have a little wine, and just enjoy the arts. Get to appreciate the arts with your friends, with your contemporaries. And it's just like a lovely, relaxing thing. But it's relaxing with like an electric energy of like creative excitement. And that is where I think we are the most similar, like my gallery and a physical gallery. Where we differ, we're able to do a few more interesting things in that we can't. You don't have to sell your work here. You should, but you don't have to. Most art galleries, I think I touched upon this earlier in the interview. Most art galleries require you to sell your work. We don't ask for that. Most art galleries ask for more money when submitting art. We don't ask for that. We just have a $20 flat fee. And usually the money I get, most of it goes back into the gallery anyway when I pay live musicians and shit. Actually, that's another thing. You can have a live musician at a IRL art gallery. The studio the gallery I used to work at never did that, but they absolutely could. But yeah, where we differ, mostly the logistical process. We can also show digital artwork a lot easier. Because usually an artist, if they do digital art, they have to bring in a print. And usually that's not something you see at a fine art gallery. You don't really see like prints displayed. It's not that it doesn't happen. It's just not very common. Especially in small town art galleries, like you don't see that much. Here we could show all different types of art. We could show digital art. We could show 3D renders. We could show photography. Well, photography shown in real life art galleries. It's just it's a slightly different vibe. But most of the differences come in like the pipeline, like the actual like process of setting up a show. Like the logistical stuff. One fun thing is we could show the artwork way bigger than it actually is in real life.
I'm sure that's a very nifty thing.
It's always nice for me to see my art way bigger than it is in real life. I have a lot of fun with that.
I have another random question. I usually ask this of people who do what they do in VR in real life as well. But when you go to art galleries and all those different functions and stuff, did you ever get a gauge of what the real life equivalents think of VR and what you do or what happens in here?
I've told the gallery owner of the gallery I used to work at about this. I've told both the gallery owners. They love this. They love this idea. They think it's super cool. They love hearing that it's doing well. I'm still good friends with them. I actually need to catch up with them sometime.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I think when I tell people who don't have any experience in VR about this, you'd be surprised at how often they're like, "Oh wow, that's really cool." Like it's not a wait, a gallery in VR. No, it's never that. It's
Hmm.
oh yeah, that makes sense. That's super cool that you're doing that.
Hmm.
It's very weird. It's never the reaction I expect.
Well, I just know right now in VR's life, it's kind of in that weird middle zone, or some people kind of tilt their nose down at it, and other people are like, I want to go there tomorrow. And I just always find it interesting when, like, for example, the VR out gallery owners or real life artists look into what happens here, what their thoughts are. It's just one of the things I've always found interesting to kind of get a mind's eye on what other people
One of
think.
the upsides, one of the bigger upsides of having a VR art gallery is you get people coming from all over the world.
Mm,
And so it's much more accessible to a much larger group of people than a small town art gallery would be.
mm,
Because there are people who drive in from out of town for small town art galleries, but you don't get people from Egypt. You don't get people from the Netherlands in like the middle of like nowhere's Pennsylvania. You don't get like all of this mixing of cultures and ideas. I think it's so cool. You might get that in the city, but yeah, no, this is just a lot more accessible. You don't got to get a plane ticket here. You just got to get a headset, or not even that, because you can come here on PC. Can't come here on Quest. No, we're not changing that anytime soon. Uh,
I
before you even ask, no desire to do that.
Nope. I don't ever request that of people. I've always figured people, when they create their own worlds and communities, they will accommodate to whom they wish to come in. And I've always respected that of people, at least personally.
Yeah. Also, Quest worlds just have so many limitations to them. Like it's so hard.
Hmm. Well, to be fair, in VR's lifespan, we're like the Nokia brick phone stages of VR in the metaverse, or wherever
Right.
this is. We're still like we're like the early adopters, and I'm sure the people like Tupper, who's been here even earlier than that, would say no, you're not. But to some degree, I'm thinking more like the long grand scheme of things. We ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Mm.
I think we're getting closer and closer to like the Blackberries,
Mm.
like the Blackberry stage of it, where phones are getting better, but they're still lame as hell.
Yep.
Like I look at the Apple headset and I'm like, that's gonna suck. Like I'm sure it's gonna be a nice piece of technology, but you're not gonna be able to repair it. There's not gonna be a lot of ways to like customize it. Like the Quest 2, there's so much third-party shit you can get for this. I use a lot of third-party shit for this. Same with the Quest 3. The
Mm.
Apple thing is too expensive for what it is.
It's like those really niche Blackberries, or the you remember the old weird flip phones where they flipped in two directions? You went this way, you get the
Oh,
numbers.
I had that. They suck. They suck. I would butt dial and accidentally change the settings on it, because that was back when touchscreens were based on pressure and not
Mm.
from like heat, right?
Yep.
So like, God, this. I remember I'm a Samsung guy now, but I remember really liking my iPhone 4. That was a
Mm.
good phone.
Mm. From the olden days, one of my favorite old phones was the Motorola Quantico. It was a flip phone made for military specs. I would get bored and just
That's
throw that bitch across. It hit walls, goes into traffic. It went to the bottom of a really big river, and I'd pick it up, turn it on. Oh, look, it still works. Throw it again. I loved that phone.
yeah. My first phone was an old flip phone. I
Mm.
loved that thing. It was
Mm.
just like just an old flip phone, and you could get some shitty phone games on it.
Mm.
Uh, it was nice.
Mm. Well,
But then I accidentally dropped it in a river. That wasn't so nice.
that's why you need a
But man, I
Motorola
miss flip
Quantico.
phones. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now I've got Samsung like everybody else. I
Mm.
I used Macs for most of my life. I used Apple products, but like the longer time goes on, the more I like have a terrible taste in my mouth when it comes to Apple. Like after this computer goes, I'm fully switching away from Apple products. Their company policies have just become too scummy, especially like not able to like repair anything
So,
without like either paying an arm and a leg or breaking a bunch of contracts.
so do you play Vrchat on a Mac?
No, I don't think you can. No, I have a custom rig for this. I used to run this on I had two laptops. I had a Mac and a PC. And I had two laptops so that I could develop for both Mac and PC. And I made most of Existensis on a Mac, and then I got a PC just so that I can more easily develop for it and test it on the PC. With Vrchat, for the first year I was in VR, I was running it on that laptop. I'll put it. I don't use that laptop anymore because it would get so hot over the 1,000 hours I played it on that that the bottom of the screen is permanently discolored.
Oh.
I was melting that computer. And so now I had the opportunity in January of last year to get a custom rig. And I got 3080 on this. I got a good processor. I got like 64 gigabytes of RAM. Good shit. And I can make it a business expense because I do all my networking and I get all my clients in VR. All of my VR equipment is a business expense. It's great. My full body tracking was a business expense.
Interesting.
It's great.
I'm sure it is great being able to make a living or some of a living based upon what you enjoy doing.
Oh, it is a blessing. I am so fortunate. And if I can spread that fortune to others, even better.
Well, I will say thank you very much, Pear, for sitting down here and talking. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you. Where can people find you if they wish to find
same
you?
here. So you can find me if you want to check out the thestrangepear Discord, Discord GG/thestrangepear. If you want to see more of my personal work, like my graphic novels or video games, you can go to www.ozpearsall.art. ozpearsall.art.
Okay. Well,
and play Existensis on Steam.
And all those links will be down the hoobly thingamabobble down there. And after you know the thing.
Yep.
Like I say, folks, no matter how your art is, I don't know if I say this enough, it could be in VR, it could be in real life. Hell, it could be chalk paintings, and some of those are wicked. No matter what you do or how you do it, it's still a piece of art. Only in your mind. Just let everybody else try to pick your mind. That's the biggest thing. You take care, folks. We'll talk to you next time around. Bye.